Welcome back to the Winner Circle, everybody. I am here with Zak from BDO, and they are another winner in the Big Innovation Awards. And this time it was in the team category. So, Zak, congratulations for your entire team. Give us a little bit of background about BDO and a little bit of background about you, and we'll get into the team aspect of it in a second.
Hey, thank you very much. Yeah, I'm Zak Fay. I'm the AI Innovation Manager at BDO. BDO is a very large accounting firm, and we handle all sorts of different kind of business and finance style services. I think we'd be considered like a one-stop shop: tax, assurance, advisory, consulting, kind of anything that you want to get involved in. Uh, I think the tagline for BDO used to be "For those who know, no BDO." So
Right.
that's our that's kind of our
I do
namesake.
remember that tagline. We were talking about taglines earlier. It is one of the most memorable for those who know. They know BDO.
Right. So that's the BDO kind of in a nutshell. I'm sure someone could be more eloquent about that than I can. Um, my team specifically works in innovation, and so accounting innovation with a focus on artificial intelligence right now. So our team is the RAID team, and that stands for the Research and AI Development Team.
Well, it's a testament to BDO that there's this team, right? And I think I've been talking to folks about. I think 2026, 2025 was the year of generative AI. 2024 was like, oh my God, AI, right? 2025 was generative AI. 2026 to me is the year of the CAIO, but it sounds like BDO was well ahead of the curve, and they've been implementing this for a while. So talk us a little bit about the history of how this team came together.
No, you're absolutely right. This was, I think it was early 2023, maybe mid 2023. We had a group called the Digital Transformation Innovation Group. Sorry, Digital Transformation Innovation Group. That was leaders from around the firm that were getting together to say how can we push the firm forward with technology. One of those team members was Mike Gerhard, who is now our chief data and AI officer. That happened, I think, last year, early last year, potentially. Kind of went with that push and with that initiative. We had seen ChatGPT as a very popular generative AI tool and platform to help kind of create language or text. And we went, how can we utilize that at BDO in a safe and secure way? I was part of a project to essentially turn Chat GPT into something that we could use at BDO, which turned into something called Chat BDO. And it's a safe, secure way. We're a Microsoft shop, so we're using Azure's OpenAI service for that. But ultimately, that tool kind of opened up our firm's eyes about the power of what artificial intelligence could do. And then very rapidly, we went, oh, we have this hammer now that we've made, and I think there's a lot of nails that we could use to kind of put this thing, through the ringer. So very quickly, we were trying to get this handle on. We have this technology kind of breakthrough at BDO, right? We have this space where we can use this tool in really any way that we'd like. What's the right way to use this? What's the responsible way? What is, how do we put people first? Those are, BDO's core values. So we wanted to make sure that we were staying in line with that. Right off the bat, we saw that the team as it existed, our innovation team really needed to kind of refocus into that. I think it's called like mode 2, basically. So just in a brief way of saying it, some teams are there to work on predictable work. And I want to talk about Six Sigma here in a little while. And then there's other teams that get developed that work on exploratory work. And RAID, so the research and AI development team, was built to really focus on that exploratory work. So again, we have this monster of a tool, artificial intelligence and generative AI. How can we leverage that at the firm in a responsible way that would augment what our professionals can do every day, what our employees can do every day? How can we supercharge kind of our folks in general? So we built a small team that was full of creatives, that's full of dreamers, that's full of futuristic folks, full of learners. And we interface directly with the business. We have conversations, we meet with them, we do workshops and hackathons, et cetera, to try to build up what is the next thing that we want to work at BDO that's really going to move the needle, and we've been successful with that.
Well, before we get into the nitty gritty, I'd like to kind of honor the team a little bit and talk about them for a second. Uh, there's a few members of the team. You're obviously leading this team. Walk us through each of the members. You've got, Gavin, Nate, Steven, and Jordan. They won the award for big innovation awards for their work here. So walk us through a little bit about Gavin, Nate, Steven, and Jordan.
Yeah, every one of them, like if I could distill all of them into kind of a bubble, they're ferocious learners. They're constantly curious. They're folks who I'll get a text at 9 a.m. or 9 p.m., right? It could be any hours of the day. We have a team chat where we're talking, and people will just share information that they're finding, things that they're working on that inspires them, something that they learned that's new. They're constantly looking for what's that next thing, not just in the tech space, but also in a technique space. To be more specific, Gavin is probably the brightest-eyed, bushy-tailed kind of person on the team. He's forever optimistic, and he can take on the world. He's a very talented developer. Nate has been a personal friend of mine for a really long time, even before BDO, but he just has a mind for business and being able to translate for a business in a way that I think is vital for our developers in the future, or anyone who works in this space, is really knowing how to speak with a business and how to understand their needs in a way that maybe a dev team didn't need in the past, where they would rely on different tools. Well, AI has helped with that area as well. Steven is kind of the ringleader of our developers in general. He's their dev manager. Also, just consistently curious, consistently somebody who's pushing us forward, always positive, lots of energy and enthusiasm. And then Jordan, a recent addition to the RAID team, is really a jack of all trades. He got brought on as a business analyst for the team. He has put time in from a development standpoint, almost as much as our developers. He has a really great mind for being able to translate a vision into like a working product. And that's just a little tiny piece of our team, right? The AI engineering team in general is like 30 people. Or 20 people. I'm not going to go through all of them, but that team is set up in a way that has allowed us to be like the point of the spear, so to speak.
Yeah, and I like that approach, especially, BDO is not a small organization.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm interested in how different companies are tackling kind of how they're getting into this. I stepped out of that corporate world, 3 or 4 years ago, and at that time it was halt, do not go, do not touch Chat GPT, do not chat Gemini. And obviously the world has radically changed because now the CEO, I'm sure, has got it on his phone, but they're rightfully worried, about, data security and, intellectual property and everything, being sucked into the vacuum of the LLMs. But so there was that halt, and now you guys are really taking this kind of, as you described it, this kind of tip of the spear approach. You've got this back end that's massive, right? A massive IT organization, massive data teams. What makes you unique compared to those teams in a normal organization? What makes this kind of RAID approach unique?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I think that one thing we've always focused on was safe and secure. Even right off the bat, or kind of our out of the box models, we don't do learning. Just as an aside, we don't do any kind of like iterative learning. So there's no reinforcement that's happening, and that protects data that we have, which is fantastic. But as far as what kind of makes us different, or what makes RAID specifically different than a lot of the teams I've ever worked on, is I think that we have a lot of leeway from our leadership team to really hone in on those areas that matter, and those kind of value driven areas. To say it a little bit differently, we have the ability to kind of get in the room with most of the executive team and really narrow in on what they believe are some of the higher strategic areas. And we're actually in the room, right? We're actually sitting kind of with them and working on that. But then at the other end of the spectrum, we get paired up with folks across the business that are just as hungry, just as interested, kind of just as curious, but also extremely talented in their areas. So when we can combine those forces, we call those folks business line stewards. But when we combine those forces and we can pair up with that group, we're unstoppable. I think sometimes the work in a normal kind of shop would work where it goes, a leader says this is what's important. The team gets handed criteria or user stories, and then you work on it until it's done. But we tackle this in a very different way where we do like 5 why approach, right? We work our way through good kind of understanding models of trying to understand what the real problem is, root cause analysis, et cetera. That again, I wouldn't expect a developer skills to have, but on our team kind of came preloaded with that kind of work or that ability. And I think that paired with the fact that we just surrounded with folks who understand their business and can translate for us while we translate for essentially the technology, I think that that's almost unstoppable.
What problem do you think they're solving when they took this approach? I mean, they could have taken any approach leadership could have of, they could have brought in a consultant and we could have had the department leads all meet with the consultant about, what do you need? And it would have been a 2-year long process. What do you think, what do you think this solved in terms of, this rate approach?
I think you get more adoption. I think that when you have a tool or when you have projects or initiatives that come from inside the firm, you're much more likely as an employee to be more kind of trusting of the work that's getting done. And that's maybe not a slam to outside groups, but this idea that especially with artificial intelligence, it can feel scary. Like, is this something that's going to take my job? Is this something that's going to do X, Y, Z? But knowing that kind of the team BDO themselves are the ones who are trying to steward this thing correctly, being responsible with it, focusing on augmentation and enhancement, not automation, and knowing that that's fully transparent is, I think, a good tactic. On one of the ways that we do that is we host fireside chats. So it's very similar to this, right? We will open those up to the entire firm, and it's my team. So Stephen, Gavin, Jordan, and Nate will get on a call, and we will talk about things that are happening that we're seeing, things that are interesting, open to questions, open to people kind of getting in and really trying to understand what the problem is or what we're working on. So we tackle change management, I guess, by being in the company, and it helps to enable that usability. I think it's something like 80% of the firm right now uses Chat BDO or some of our AI tools almost every week. Our adoption is very high for a firm as large as it is.
Well, I can't imagine, having something like Chat BDO back, I was in marketing, but, in a marketing organization where you want to know something about a customer or a process or a service, it would have been so remarkable to have that at my fingertips. You guys didn't launch just this, Chat BDO. You rolled out, I think, 9 agents in under a year, which is pretty amazing. What does that kind of intake to prototype to launch actually look like when you're rolling 9 out?
No, that's a great question. And most of those agents are actually just little. Well, to call an agent is almost an understatement. Each of those are full initiatives that we've been working on with this team. So there's some of them are kind of point based, but there's a larger kind of broader message that we try to follow with our strategy. Revenue recognition, revenue improvement, things like that are kind of themes that we try to tackle. One of those was consultative sell, which is probably our most impactful kind of tool that we've helped to build. But again, this stems from getting together with our business line stewards and going, hey, we know that the executive team is very interested in, growth this year, or there always are, everyone is, but this quarter, let's focus on growth, right? How can we focus on growth? How can we focus on that as an aspect? Our business line stewards will go out. We have a full kind of rigorous process on data collection, on interviewing, to really gather real data on what's happening at the firm and finding those areas that are potential areas for improvement. One of the things that showed up was we spend a lot of time, and this is not a BDO thing. This is corporations in general, I'm sure you had to spend a lot of time, even just getting ready for this, of trying to understand who, what, where, why, how. What are we going to talk about? Where are we headed? And really trying to get better intelligence around what you're walking into. There's a lot of time that's spent on research, and specifically at our firm, we were building these things called insight reports. And an insight report is essentially, I'm about to meet with a prospective client. What should I know? How can I go learn about my client? Right. So Russ, I go to LinkedIn. I go, what does Russ do on LinkedIn? Right. Russ is a black belt in Six Sigma. Great. Cool. So I know that about you. Russ worked at these 2 jobs ahead of time. I know that about you. Now I have things that I can start to talk to you about, right? I, as a user or as a professional today, or I guess prior to consultative self, would have to go manually do a lot of that work. What we were able to build is a tool that can essentially go out, get information that's relevant, package that in a way that's digestible for our users. And instead of having to spend 8 hours of doing research, you can obviously make sure you're verifying it, double check the work, etc. You can have that done in 10 minutes. That will help kind of present you the information that you need. Next steps, actions, things you should talk about, suggestions so that you have a better conversation with others. Aside from the business, paired with kind of the beautiful minds of our team of going, we can use technology to help solve this problem. Thank you for presenting that challenge to us. That's how we get there. Once an idea, though, has proven kind of that POC work, we get into governance, like a rigorous governance test. We get into working with our legal team, make sure that this makes sense. Where data security and privacy, extremely important. So we kind of walk through the entire process. And consultative cell, I think, is a great example. I think we had like 35,000 uses recently. It's fantastic.
Well, it's funny you brought up my Six Sigma too, and my Six Sigma project was actually surrounding consultative selling. It was
I
around.
want to talk about it.
No, yeah, it was around an upselling project, and so I worked for a telecom operator, B2B primarily, and you had thousands of customers calling in to report an outage or whatever, and there was an old kind of, I don't know if it was true or not, but there was a story around. We probably Google it or AI it now. That if you had a customer who actually called into your customer service department and it was handled well, that customer would actually be more loyal than if they had not called in. And so that always struck me. And when we were going through this upsell exercise of trying to offer more products when customer called in, you had a customer touch point. It was really difficult because you have this deep portfolio of product, right? At a telecom operator, we were selling cloud, we were selling services, phone, voice, everything. You had regulatory restrictions depending on where the person was. You had all this complexity, and then you had agents that were in the Philippines, salespeople that were in the Americas. The customer was in New York, the sales team was in California. You had all of these complexities, and it was very challenging. And then you went into a model where now we had to train customer service reps on A, how to sell, and how to do that job. And B, we had to teach them the entire product portfolio, or at least the things they were going to be pitching. About a year later, it took off.
Yeah.
And it was systems and process. And now what you're talking about with the context of information that you have, that's a Chat BDO.
Yeah. So to take your example, I think this is a great example. Even getting out of BDO for a second, of kind of where things are heading in my head, right? From a future standpoint. So same example, you have a product portfolio. There's 100 different services or products that you can sell, right? How can you expect a professional to have those memorized, know exactly when they should be offered, know what attributes or triggers, right? Know essentially this is what the ideal client profile looks like, right?
It was so many guesses.
Yeah.
It was
And
guesses on guesses.
right. But that person is hired to be a great relationship person. They're hired to build connections. They're hired to, build trust, right? The ethos, pathos, logos options of how are you kind of building your reputation with this person that you're talking to. What if we could just make the research part easier, right? And that's really what we're trying to tackle is we aren't interested in going, you need to make a robot salesperson or a robot service person or a robot relationship person. Like, that's not it. Can we help make it so that the research is easier?
Well, it makes the human more human, right? Now, when you call in, it's not, I always joke about the doctor's office because that's the worst example, right? You fill in your name 22 times on 14 different
Yeah.
forms,
Yep.
right? And it's the same in the customer service world often. And we just did a webinar on these handoffs, the AI to human handoffs, and that's really where we've got to focus. I think a lot of our attention this year is this thing's coming.
Yeah.
It's handling more than we ever knew it would, and we need those handoffs to be good. So there it is. There's this. There's still this human aspect to it, and you guys have done a really good job at bringing this team together to kind of really get after the human aspects of it. And I think your Chat BDO alone. I think you guys calculated something. You want to reveal what that
Yeah.
number was in terms
It's
of
like
hours saved?
think about 1,000,000 hours at the
Yeah,
firm.
and I think there's 13,000 employees. That's not insignificant. You're talking about, significant amount of work, and that number is going to grow. I won't even guess at how big it'll grow. Yesterday, I guessed at how many semiconductors were in a car, and I said 30 or 40 probably. And it turns out there's like 4,000 in a modern high-end luxury car. So
Just taught me something new.
I'm not gonna guess at any numbers anymore. But just the compounded volume of that as people, as you say, start to adopt and get more comfortable with it is just gonna explode.
Yep. I think when you look at like what are teams like mine or what are businesses going to be doing? It's really trying to figure out how to eliminate waste in a process, eliminate waste between the human being amazing, right? That professional is what I should say, but that professional or that employee being amazing at what they do. And often it's either a skill up issue or it's a time issue. And if we can do both with each of the tools that we make or each of these initiatives, we're what is that called? We're a force multiplier, right? Like that's and my team loves it. They eat it up. They love everyone on our team is just so enthusiastic about finding that way that they can really make a difference. And I know that sounds corny, but I genuinely mean that. Like we're very interested in uh, just making it so that you can get home to see another soccer game, right? You see your kid's soccer game again, or you were able to get information on your client while you were headed to a meeting, some other meeting. You're in your car trying to get an understanding of, oh, my client loves the Lions. Like, I'd love to be able to talk a little bit more about the Lions with them, right? Like, these are little things that we can do and we have done that really add up. And then we have these massive projects that work too.
I think we've talked about a couple of your tools. You've got this Chat BDO that saved you 1,000,000 hours. We hinted around this consultative selling agent. Um, which ones do you think have had the biggest kind of organizational impact overall? And then which one do you
Cool.
think has the biggest opportunity?
Yeah, I think it's easy. Selfishly, I think the idea of sales intelligence and customer, I guess, service intelligence is probably the area that is likely to be the most impact in general. Obviously, giving universal access to artificial intelligence is helpful to just level up the firm with training, with good change management, right? Responsibility. Um, but really, like I said, I think kind of service intelligence is an area that's um, being able to connect data, connect process, connect next actions with a professional is something that's is likely the place that I'm most interested in. BDO has something like 300 services.
Yeah, for firms like yours, insurance, financial services, technologies, um, like I always go back. I dealt with Cisco a lot, networking firms, CISCO, not the food service Cisco. Um, their product catalog. If you just go 10 years, just 10 years of their product catalog has got to be thousands and millions of SKUs. And for an individual engineer or customer to try to figure out what is the perfect fit, it's just, they have teams of engineers. And so I think they're seeing probably an amazing pull through on this side too. But when you have that product depth and that portfolio depth, when a customer comes in with one thing, they might have been sold that, and now there's something that's better or something that suits their needs more. Their life has changed. Their needs have
Exactly.
changed. And it's so important because what's our first instinct is to come and go, well, BDO doesn't do that. I'm going to go over here. Right. Well, T-Mobile doesn't do that. I'm going to go to AT&T. Comcast doesn't do that. And I think our immediate kind of answer. But now most of the time there are solutions out there and these companies will present solutions, especially with AI custom solutions. It really is going to be very impactful because I think customers will get stuff that's better suited to that.
Yes. Because the professional they're working with, that relationship that they have, that person can be the most well kind of informed person in BDO, but they have to go to the person that they know, right? They have to go to the next person and try to build those relationships. If we can help bridge the gap between that and say that, this is something that your client likes, and here's a service that's paired with that, that's at least a good step for a conversation. We're never going to push that. We're never going to push something that isn't accurate or helpful. But being able to tee that up for those folks who already manage those relationships, that's just a win.
Yeah. How do you encourage kind of that responsible experimentation inside of kind of what's usually a pretty, not rigid, but very structured environment?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So each of our main business lines have their own kind of rules and regulations around how they're able to and when they can use artificial intelligence. I think we've always defaulted to you need to use professional judgment, right? Like that's the first and foremost thing. You're hired because you're an expert. You're hired because you're top of your class, right? You're amazing in the field. Um, don't let artificial intelligence kind of be
Dumb you
your
down.
exactly. That's exactly it. And so that's the first thing that we do. We have a large amount of training. We do so we have a lot of adoption programs that are running currently. But as far as being responsible, like I said, we have a really large AI governance team that is working through all of the kind of proof of concepts or any kind of demo that we might have or our team kind of cooks up. We'll go through our governance team. We'll make sure that we're doing these things responsibly, that we're, again, I'm not going to know perfectly exactly what I can and can't do. But when I work hand in hand as closely as we do with our governance teams or with our legal teams, it lets us kind of have more assurance that yes, this is okay, or let's go tweak this, make sure that this makes sense because at the end of the day, we're trying to make our customers better, customers happier, and we want to focus on that.
Yeah. Well, you guys have done this astounding job of kind of transforming this, very regulated business, compliance constrained. And you did it in a way that's kind of unique. I think we talked about in this raid team. It really was about building trust with the leadership org. Um, how did you guys really kind of build trust in them and in the larger community, and not just with the tools, but that the team's kind of doing the right thing? And I imagine, every department lead was, well, some of them were probably.
Absolutely. It can be like we talked about. It can be scary. It could be a worry. It could be all sorts of things when you hear that there's we're going to use artificial intelligence. We're not kind of poking blind though. We're not just starting on these things in a place where we're looking at automating areas of the company. In fact, that's not the right call, in my opinion. The important part is being able to set up our professionals the way that they are. Remove the things that are monotonous, tedious. Remove the things that are um, kind of getting in the way of what makes you unique and special, what makes you be an expert, right? Why you're hired, right? Those real things. And the reason that we were able to make that push that message is again, Mike on our team, Mike Gerhard, the chief data and AI officer, has been what is the correct? He's been fervent about making sure that our leadership team, our C-level team, really understands what we're working on. That they feel like they have buy-in. I know he's meeting and speaking with them. They're collaborating on areas of the firm that we should be focused on. So we have kind of buy-in at the top, and then, like I said, from kind of the grassroots area, we're meeting individually with these folks that are doing this work. We're meeting with our service owners, the folks who are actually managing some of those services. We're meeting with our premier teams, right? We're meeting kind of across the firm to get a good understanding of what's happening, and then actually showing them what we're doing so they can see and feel comfortable and ultimately have buy-in and creative control over the direction that we want to take. Because at the end of the day, when we make tools, we're making it for them, right? I'm not making a tool for me. I'm making a tool for that professional. So that's been pretty massive. I think is just that idea that we can, instead of just saying it, we're showing it, and I think that's helped a lot.
Well, the results of your team show it. I mean, the 1 million hours saved alone, and not 9 agents, and you're the consultative selling one's going to take off, no doubt. If somebody else was going to kind of take this approach and kind of put in this team approach, this kind of hit squad, um, what advice would you give them, and kind of give us one thing that maybe went wrong that you maybe look at again a different way?
Yeah, no, good question. I think that what went wrong is much easier to talk about because it's always like top of mind. But this idea that the first kind of iteration of the team is going to be the right iteration, and I mean from a structure, from a process standpoint, what that team looks like, and what that team, how they work today is not going to be how they work even 3 months from now. And just kind of sticking to the idea of like that agile mindset of, I know we need to kind of review what that team looks like, inspect kind of the results, make adjustments, and be able to tweak that and be comfortable with tweaking that. I think that can be difficult in some firms, or I'd say in some companies in general, this idea that um, if we saw 80% success the first month, that might be a failure or something, right? When in reality, um, your first pass at this is going to be a draft, and you need to be comfortable going, all right, rebuild, relook, or make an adjustment. And we've done that. We've been really successful because of that. Um, I think that would be the area that I'd look at for like pitfalls to avoid.
Yeah.
I think as far as what makes, what someone should look for if they're going to make a team like this, they really need to get buy-in kind of across that business. That the connection point that we build with our business line stewards is important, but I'd say just as important, or potentially more important, are the folks that we are bridging that gap with. At the end of the day, it becomes a relationship problem, right? It's a relationship challenge. If we have folks on our team, and we do, who are fervent, who are just fanatical about AI is going to transform the way we work, right? If we have folks who are that believing in the technology from the business side, it makes the conversations much easier to say, all right, business, here's what we're going to change based off of your own, like, this is what you want to do, right? We essentially build a setup that says businesses ask for this, and can speak to the business in a way that our team can't. And we start with them from day one.
Yeah. Well, Zak, you've done a phenomenal job. Really appreciate all the work that you've done. I'm sure BDO appreciates it. And, Gavin, Nate, Steven, and Jordan, congratulations to you as well. You guys are killing it. And congratulations on the award again. We're really proud to have recognized you guys this year for all the work that you've done.
Hey, thank you very much. AI engineering team's fantastic. Shout out to them.
Yeah. Shout out AI engineering team, BDO.
Yep.
Have a great day, Zak, and thanks.
Hey, thank you.